Welcome back, everybody, to another Sword Coast Legends in-depth character, or at least in-depth class look preview for the Rogue this time. I'm Reptilian Cow again, and I'll be guiding you through the Rogue class and all of its little fun skill trees. If you haven't noticed, or if you haven't seen, there is another overview that I did that will go over appearance, equipment stats, and that sort of thing, but this will just be focused on the abilities screen. I will put a link in the description to that video, but we're going to look at a Halfling Rogue here. So we've got a couple different trees that we're working with here. I'll go through each of them in depth, and there will be some overlay, so I won't really... Well, screw it. Since it's an in-depth video, I better go through all of them again, so just bear with me if you've already seen the other videos. But anyway, let's get to it. So, starting off, we have the Scoundrel. Often falling on both sides of the law, most scoundrels have mastered the art of deception and thievery, whether it's for their own personal gain or in the service of those in need. Skulking in the shadows and striking without warning, these abilities are usually what rogues are most famous for. And he's not wrong. So we've got Hide. Steal away in the shadows and avoid being detected and get the drop on your foes. Being hit increases critical range by 5 and grants combat advantage on your next attack. While hiding, movement speed is reduced by 50%. You also gain a +7 bonus to stealth checks. So these just level up here. And then the bread and butter for the rogue, Sneak Attack. You know how to strike subtly and exploit a foe's distraction. You deal an extra piercing damage to a creature you hit with an attack if you have the advantage on the attack roll. You don't need the advantage on the attack roll if another enemy of the target is within 5 feet of it, and you don't have a disadvantage on the attack roll. The extra damage is automatically a critical hit if done from stealth. So basically what that means is if you're flanking somebody, you get it as long as you don't have some kind of disadvantage on you, like he has a buff that gives him the advantage. Or if you do it straight from stealth, it's a crit, which is actually pretty cool. Then we got the Knave's Gambit. Take a gamble, focusing purely on your opponent's weak points while ignoring your own. Increase critical range by 2 while suffering a -10 penalty to AC. So really, again, only if you're flanking the target would you want to use this. Rogues are notoriously squishy, so giving yourself a penalty to armor class might not work out in your favor. Sudden Strike. Strike a foe quickly, dealing piercing damage and causing the target to grant combat advantage for 20 seconds. So this will play off your sneak attack, so even if you're fighting them solo, as long as they don't have the advantage on you, if you sudden strike them, then you'll start doing sneak attack damage. And then Dirty Trick, Pocket Sand, my favorite. The victor writes the history books. Who cares if you fought a little dirty? Throw some dirt towards the eyes of nearby foes. Each enemy in an 80-degree, 5-yard long cone must make a DC dexterity save or take damage and be blinded for 10 seconds. The Thief. Dashing in and out of combat with ease, thieves are the sight to behold on the battlefield, and amongst the most difficult of enemies to keep track of. Their combat skills are equaled only by their charm and persuasion, along with their ability to get into areas and make use of items never meant for them. So Dash. Fueled by adrenaline, you channel your energy into running faster than ever before, increasing your movement speed by 50% for 10 seconds. Never a bad idea. Disengage. This is probably one of the more powerful defensive rogue abilities. Now in 5e, everybody can disengage, it's just a combat move. In Sword Coast, they decided to just give it to the rogue, basically. Dodge quickly out of the way, increasing all damage resistance by 50% for 4 seconds. For the next 5 seconds, you will gain a +5 bonus to stealth checks. Expertise. The rogue's expertise is second to none. Get an extra +3 bonus to lockpicking, search, and disarming traps. Slippery Mind. You have acquired a greater mental strength. You gain proficiency in wisdom saving throws and a +6 bonus when attempting to decipher a scroll. So it's kind of like a boost to your wisdom saving throw as well as use magic device. So that's pretty interesting. Go for the Throat. This one is one of my favorites also. Pesky magic users are nothing without their voices. You force a strike on that vulnerable spot to halt their spellcasting in their tracks for 12 seconds. So it's a silence, basically. And it gets pretty powerful. 20-second cooldown at max rank. It's got an 18-second duration, so they're not going to be casting much spells. And then the last one on this disengage skill tree is evasion. You've learned to nimbly dodge out of the way of many area effects, such as Red Dragon's Fire Breath or an Ice Storm spell. When you are subject to an effect that allows you to make dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, you instead take no damage if you succeed on the saving throw, and only half damage if you fail. The Assassin. Dealers of death, an assassin's sole goal is to execute their targets as quickly and efficiently as possible. Assassins' abilities focus on closing quickly with their prey and striking with devastating force. Many foes do not even see an assassin's blade until it's too late. Hidden Dagger. Hurl a weighted dagger at the target, dealing piercing damage and throwing them off balance. For the next 60 seconds, the affected creature's cooldown durations are increased by 100%. So, also a good thing to throw at a caster. But you can do it from range. It's not as powerful as a silence, but it keeps you safer. Wow, 400%. That's insane. In danger. You use your combat expertise to its fullest, throwing your weapon's defenses to the wind. Your attacks deal piercing damage and cause them to take an additional 30% damage from bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing sources. So basically just, it's kind of like a Sunder, but it doesn't target armor directly. Death Strike. You become the Master of Death. Striking with this attack deals an initial piercing damage and forces the target to make a DC Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the target takes an additional 25 to 100 piercing damage. So this is, you know, the assassin being the assassin. Misty Step, one of the most fun abilities in the game, I think, for the rogue. Because who doesn't want a teleporting rogue? Briefly surround you in silver mist, you teleport up to 15 yards to a location you designate. If an enemy creature is targeted, you will attack the target, dealing piercing damage. Substitution. Outsmart your enemies by flipping away and leaving behind a target dummy for them to focus their attention on. The dummy lasts for up to 20 seconds or until it's destroyed. For the next 5 seconds, you will gain a plus 10 to stealth. Arcane Trickster. Some rogues enhance their fine-honed skills of stealth and agility with magic, learning tricks of the enchantment and illusion. The abilities of the Arcane Trickster focus on distracting and confusing one enemies, making them far more susceptible to their powerful melee attacks. So this is brilliant. 5e gives you the option to specialize into the Arcane Trickster, and with Sword Coast you kind of get to cherry pick and choose which specialization you want, because you couldn't technically do an Assassin and an Arcane Trickster at the same time. Well, now you can. Sorcerer Rogues are, you know, very popular, or Sorcerer Wizards are very popular in, you know, 3.5 and stuff like that from Neverwinter Nights and that sort of thing. So being able to have some kind of disables as a rogue is just dirty. You start off with Sleep. Sends creatures in the area into magical slumber. Each target within 3-yard radius of the point you designate must make a DC Constitution save or fall unconscious. The spell ends if the target takes damage. Now, if they're unconscious, you have combat advantage, so you can put them to sleep and then knife them, if you so choose. Trickster's Implement. Infuse your weapons with shadow energy, causing them to deal an extra 1d for necrotic damage on hit. This effect lasts 30 seconds. So it's kind of like Poison Blade from the Assassin. But you are doing, you know, magic damage instead. Hold Monster. Choose a creature that you see within range. The target must succeed a DC 9 Wisdom saving throw or be paralyzed for a minute. At the end of its turn, the target has a chance to make a secondary DC saving throw to end the spell early. So paralyzed, never a bad thing. Versatile Trickster. You attempt to distract your target with the Mage Hand spell. The target must make a Wisdom save or be distracted. The distracted foe grants combat advantage to its attackers for 15 seconds. So basically tapping them on the shoulder with an invisible hand. Who doesn't want that? And then Confusion. The spell assaults and twists creatures' minds, spawning delusions and provoking uncontrolled action. Each creature in a 2-yard radius sphere centered on the point you choose within range must succeed on a Wisdom save or become confused. At the end of its turns, an affected target can make a saving throw to end it early. So Confusion is just hilarious. Now, most people love the 2-weapon fighting rogue. They're a heavy feat, you know, cost in 3.5 made it a little unwieldy unless you're just solely focusing on combat, but this makes it a bit easier. 2-weapon fighting, or dual wielding, employs the use of weapon each hand. This style of combat allows one to rain blows on their enemies, riposting and whirling across the battlefield in a dizzying ballet of death. Whirlwind attack. You spin swinging your weapon at every foe within 4 yards. You make a melee attack on each affected enemy, dealing piercing damage. The attack is so furious that even if you miss, you still hit for partial damage. Riposte. Your senses heighten during the heat of battle. While focused, you have a 50% chance to parry an attack that would otherwise hit you. When you parry, you also perform a counterattack, dealing piercing damage. This attack lasts 12 seconds. So this is a good oh shit button. If you're caught into melee with a creature and nobody's there to support you, this will give you some added defense and a little extra damage to boot. Crimson Edge. Your strike opens a painful bleeding wound. The initial strike deals piercing damage and leaves the lingering pain that causes piercing damage over time. So a nice little bleed there. And then Cage of Chains. You hurl a weighted chain net over your enemy. The target must make a DC Dexterity saving throw or take bludgeoning damage and be trapped in place. So it's a short-range snare, which could definitely come in handy. You know, throw some chains on them and then disengage out. That way they can't follow you. That's not a bad choice. The Martial Tree. Whether grizzled veteran or squire in training, most professions have some degree in martial training. Those who excel in the use of arms, armor, and melee combat are a fearsome force to behold on the battlefield. Martial abilities focus on manipulating the battlefield by weakening one's enemies. Strike a foe with Victorious Fervor, dealing piercing damage. Performing this hit also causes you to recover hit points. Impede. You strike a foe with attempt to cripple them, dealing piercing damage and slowing their movement speed. Flying foe. You hurl a spear attached to a chain enemy. On hit, the target takes piercing damage and is pulled towards you. Wounding Blow. Brutal attack that deals piercing damage. For 60 seconds afterwards, the target suffers made a penalty to healing from all sources. So definitely good when you're trying to kill a cleric or somebody's getting healed by the cleric. And then Break the Wall. Shatter the opponent's defenses with a solid strike, dealing piercing damage and causing them to suffer a -5 penalty to AC. So we get to sunder their armor. Archery. Master of the bow, an arrow, or crossbow and bolt. A well-trained archer can often pick off their enemies long before they ever have a chance to reach him. The entire battlefield is an archer's target range, and can call out targets to their allies, shoot down enemies one at a time, or even rain arrows on multiple targets. Hunter's Mark. You choose a creature you can see within range and mystically mark it as your quarry. For the next 30 seconds, the target grants combat advantage, cannot stealth or become invisible, and the target takes 25% additional damage. Debilitating Shot. Your shot finds a painful home in your target, dealing piercing damage. The crippling shot then causes them to suffer a penalty to movement speed and -1 to hit and damage. Arrow of Slaying. This thing is actually pretty powerful. This piece of ammunition has your target's name on it, and the target will be sure to get the message. Arrow of Slaying deals piercing damage on hit to the target. Split Shot. You masterfully fire several pieces of ammunition at the same time, hitting an area 45 degrees wide within 18 yards. On hit, each target takes piercing damage. Skills and proficiencies. Don't need to worry about these. And then we're back to the Scoundrel Tree. Alright everybody, thank you so much for joining me on this more in-depth look at the rogue trees. Next video coming up here shortly should probably be the Cleric. I'll go ahead and leave a description to the overview that I did, as well as any of the previous videos regarding Sword Coast Legends. You guys take care, and I will see you next time.